All righty. Live once more. Benji's Boxing, Pro Beezy, Pep Talk UK. It's been a while, Benji. How are you?
Hello all, and it's fantastic to be back on Pep Talk UK, the best channel for your news, reviews, interviews, and of course these live chats. Yes, it has been a long time, my friend Mr. Beez, but you know, it's just like, I don't know, it's just like falling off a bike, getting back into it. And it always feels like home to be here. A pleasure to see you and to be chatting with you. You're looking very well, my friend.
Hey, not as well as you, man. You know, my beard goals are not as long as that yet. You know, I'm trying to twist it up to get that length, you know.
Yeah, well, I think the beads are going to be coming on it soon, and we might go for a little plaited thing, you know. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. But the most important thing is the wife hates it. It's only here because it drives the wife mad, you know.
Yeah. I saw that comment you put on Instagram. My bearded husband. I saw that. Hey, so look, we really got to talk about Canelo. Canelo announced the fight. Billy Joe Saunders, as expected. Let's first talk about Canelo stopping Yildirim. Well, he retired him before he came out for the fourth round. What did you make of his display?
Well, to be brutally honest, I didn't really watch it. I mean, as it happened, I caught up with it afterwards. The first thing I did in the morning was, you get on Twitter and you type it in, Yildirim, Canelo, whatever. And then you see the stoppage and then you read about it. And there's really, in my opinion, there's just not a hell of a lot to talk about. When the fight was announced, people just sort of said, well, we know Canelo's going to win. He's probably going to do it inside a couple of rounds. It's going to be a stoppage. Obviously, a lot of people say the last time for a lot of people that they saw Yildirim was Eubank Jr., because he was part of the World Boxing Super Series. And obviously that was an emphatic win for Eubank Jr., who then has been, outboxed completely comprehensively by George Groves, and not done a hell of a lot since that, other than obviously his win over James DeGale. So Yildirim didn't have a lot of bluster going into it. There's not a lot of momentum for Avni Yildirim. You couldn't really make an argument for him even being in the fight or deserving the fight. So Canelo just went in and did what he did and what was expected of him. And in a way that shows the professionalism of the guy. He just, he didn't try and do anything different. He didn't try to showboat or do anything like that. He just went in and did his thing. And talking about Canelo, before coming on this live stream, I decided to go on BoxRec and just have a quick look over things. It may just be me that this has escaped, but I just want to remind the viewers, Saul Alvarez right now stands at 55 wins, 37 knockouts, 1 defeat, which was, of course, to Floyd Mayweather, and 2 draws. Yeah, and one of those draws, obviously, Golovkin, and the other draw being... well, it was a split decision draw, Jorge Juarez, back in 2006. Okay. Other than those, people will talk about the Lara fight, I believe it was, that was a frustrating split decision night for Canelo. A lot of people thought that Lara should have won that one and gave him all sorts of problems. But when you look at those statistics, 55 wins, 37 knockouts, only 1 defeat.
Crazy.
I mean, it really is crazy. And so someone like Avni Yildirim was never going to cause him problems, and he's just not on the same level. And as we always say with this, boxing is about levels. For me now, Canelo, I mean, you have to consider him maybe pound for pound number 1. Not just because he beat out Avni Yildirim, but when you just look over the course of his career, the weight classes he stepped up through, the people he's boxed and beaten and knocked out. If Canelo's not in your top 3 pound for pound, then I don't know what to say, really. I'd love to hear the reasons why he wouldn't be. So, yeah, Avni Yildirim, I have to say he just didn't really belong in the ring with him that night. You know, hopefully he made some money out of it. Maybe that was the goal, just get him in the ring with Alvarez, because obviously if me or you got in the ring with Alvarez, we'd probably be paid a pretty penny for it. But I think more than anything, that's what it was about for Avni Yildirim. It was never really about winning the fight. It was just about go along, here's your opportunity to make a bit of money.
100%. All right, guys, we've got to salute the viewers that have joined us. The lives are back. We're going to try and do it more. So show your support, smash that like button, and let's have a party. We're talking Saunders and Canelo, May the 8th. Let us know what you think. Who's going to win that fight on May the 8th? All right, Kid Cash. I wish the fight was longer, okay, with Avni Yildirim. Yeah, you know what? A lot of people said third round anyway. You know, and if you think of Chris Eubank Jr. disposing of Yildirim 3 years ago, that was also the third round, but a little bit more emphatic. So maybe some people might have thought that Canelo would have done it earlier. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, I mean, people can always sort of say that, but I mean, I'd say that, 3 rounds of a 12-round fight, that's in the first quarter of the fight. I mean, I think that's nitpicking a little bit,
You can't make everyone happy, man, and that's for sure. All right, Raw, welcome, mate. Evening, gents. Okay, guys, get your reaction into Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders, May the 8th. Let's get in. All right, it's harsh to say Yildirim was a disgrace. Should be losing his nerve at that level. It's grounds for his purse to be withheld. You think that's a fair statement?
Nah, I mean, come on, but we've seen this many times before of boxers, not being on the same level of each other. It's just the way it is, isn't it? I mean, what I'd say to Ra or ask Ra is, what did you want from Yildirim? What did you expect from him? I mean, if you've got a problem with the fight being made in the first place, I believe it was a mandatory. Was it WBC mandatory?
IBF mandatory, I believe.
IBF mandatory. So the thing is, the IBF have said, well, this is your mandatory. It's Avni Yildirim. Yildirim's not going to turn that down. It's a night's work for a boxer. That's his job. He's not going to turn it down. If you've got a problem with the fight being made, you've got to take it up with the IBF more than anything. And as for purse being withheld, not really. I mean, we've seen worse. I mean, look at some of the fights that Mike Tyson was involved in. After he got out of prison the first time. There was a number of people that Mike Tyson boxed where it just went around or whatever, and it was just hiding to nothing. Those guys didn't get their purse withheld, so no, I don't think you can go down that route.
Yeah, look, we're talking about one of the finest fighters on the planet. Most men would have hit the deck. Even the second round. Let alone be retired on their stool before the fourth. So, he is in there with a supreme fighter. This guy's right in the peak of his career right now. No arguments. All right, guys. BJS has got to take on Canelo May the 8th. Can he do it? Let us know your reaction. All right. Okay. What's blazing in sports? You know who's going to win. LOL, Canelo. Well, look. Billy Joe will be reveling being an underdog right now. It will spur him on even more. Records are for DJs, as they say. Benji.
Well, I mean, he's going to win, lol, Canelo. I mean, it's very difficult. When you look at Canelo's record, and you look at the fact that he's active at the moment, he seems to really enjoy his boxing, because in the past when fights have got made that where you have maybe obviously we're all Brits here, when you have a British fighter and you want that British fighter to win, like, okay, great example. Great example. I was watching the documentary, Frank Bruno, Mike Tyson, that was on the other night. And Frank Bruno was very confident that Tyson had been, in jail and he wasn't focused and this, that, and the other. And so you could make the argument that maybe Bruno was getting him in at the right time. Now, with this, it's hard to say, well, Billy Joe's getting him at the right time because, let's face it, Canelo, he's been active. So you can't say, oh, well, maybe Canelo's going to be rusty, have some ring rust. No, that doesn't exist because he's been active over the last 6 months. You could say, oh, well, maybe he's getting old. He's not. He's not that old. Okay, he's had 55 fights, but has he ever been really beaten up, damaged, whatever? Not really. He's lost against Floyd Mayweather. He was just outboxed and outpointed. He wasn't really beaten up, battered, whatever. You can't bring in, so the age factor's out. You can't bring in that he's been inactive and might be rusty. Maybe he's getting jaded with the sport. I don't think so. I look at the guy and I think this is a guy that loves being in the ring, loves being in the gym and training, and just loves the whole lifestyle that goes along with boxing. So that goes out the window. So it's very hard to say that Billy Joe's getting him at the right time or anything like that, because I don't think he is. I think this is Canelo at his peak. It really is.
Yeah.
So when you're forming an argument for Billy Joe winning this, that argument has to come from what he could potentially do in the ring. Now, as we said before, Canelo has had problems with movers, jabbers, people like Mayweather, people like Lara.
Austin
so Billy Joe Saunders, we know it. Austin, yeah. We know that he's had trouble with these sort of boxers in the past, and Billy Joe can do that. That's his style. Is he good enough to do that at a level that's going to, cause Canelo problems? Maybe. Is it good enough to win the fight? Well, with someone of Canelo's stock, you're going to argue straight away that before they even step in the ring, Billy Joe's going to be 3 or 4 down on the scorecards. The argument's there that Billy Joe would need a knockout just to get a draw. So to say the deck is stacked against Billy Joe Saunders is just, it's an understatement. If he was to win this fight, it would be the biggest upset that I can ever imagine happening in boxing history. It would be that big an upset.
All right, you heard Benji. Potentially be the biggest upset that he's ever seen. All right, I would say, I might phrase it a little differently. I might say it might be one of the greatest wins that we've seen of our time. Okay, so Raw is saying, okay, if Canelo is getting used to opponents losing, they emerged in the ring, he'll get shocked when he fights someone who isn't, like Tyson did Holyfield. Okay, so I think what he's saying is, trying to put this together, I mean, if Canelo is getting used to opponents losing, they emerge in the ring? Okay, all right, look, we know what Billy Joe's about. He's a fantastic mover around the ring. He is a slick star, that's what we call it. And just as Erisani Lara, provided problems to Canelo, Billy Joe's all of that and then some, so, but I think what people are saying is Canelo back then saw that and is a lot better now, right? Needless to say, the interesting point is, it's like Billy Joe's World Cup final, it's his biggest fight of his life, and he's going to give everything in the ring, he's going to give everything. So this is why I'm looking forward to this fight. People want to see the best of Billy Joe, that Lemieux type of performance against Canelo, but Canelo's also in the prime of his career right now. So interesting factors. Guys, let us know what you think. Smash that like button. We'll try and get through your points. All right, this is a very funny point. All right, Jack saying Yildirim was robbed. He won every single round. Did you see the punch stats by the Compy box? Benji, you're on mute. You're muted, mate. Okay. All right. So Yildirim was robbed. Okay. We're going to be joined by Benji soon. Back soon. He's just encountering a bit of technical difficulties. All right. Yildirim was robbed. He won every single round. Okay. The compy box stats didn't look great for Yildirim on the night, but hey, it's Canelo. Canelo's a hell of a fighter, and I think just the whole occasion and having Canelo right in front of you is difficult for any man in the ring. All right, what's blazing? All right, we got both from Three Kings Boxing, Benji in the building. All right.
Am I back?
All right, you're back, and we've got both from Three Kings. Yo, Bo.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yo, turn your camera on. You're in the building.
Hold on for a second.
All right, okay. All right, guys, we've got a full complement in the building. Pro Beez, Benji's Boxing, and both from Three Kings Boxing, all the way from United States, Chi-Town, Chicago. All right, he's back. He's back. How you doing out there in the States?
I'm not in the States, man.
Oh, where are you?
I'm in Colombia.
You're in Colombia?
Yeah.
Wow, with Pablo Escobar.
Yeah. That's about right.
Oh, wow. Okay, look, we're going to get straight into it. We're talking Canelo against BJ Saunders. Let us know what you thought of the fight of Canelo on the, this weekend just passed.
You said, what's my thoughts on Canelo's fight this weekend?
Yeah, the fight against Yildirim.
I think that was the worst mandatory order that I've ever seen in my entire life. You know what I'm saying? And the thing that makes it, here's what makes it bad. It's not that, because when David Benavidez, if you think about what the WBC did, they actually didn't follow their own protocol, right? When David Benavidez tested positive for cocaine, which is way more egregious than missing some weight, the WBC back in 2018, what they did was they made him champion in recess, right? And then they let Yildirim fight Anthony Durrell. Now this time he misses weight, and they didn't even make him champion in recess. They put him just right back in the rankings. Like, all right, man, you finna go right back in the rankings. Now, don't get it wrong. I get it. He misses weight. Yeah. He definitely shouldn't have been able to hold on to his title. But there's no way that a Yildirim, who was coming off of a loss, by the way, from Anthony Durrell, hadn't fought in over 2 years, should have been a Mando. There was nothing that he did, or there was nothing per se that you can look at definitively and say that, hey man, he deserves to be the mandatory. So they do that, and he goes in there, and I mean, it was like, you know how you watch a little kid when they meet Santa Claus, and they're like, oh wow, Santa, and they just frozen and stunned. Like that's what Benavidez, I mean, that's what Andy Yildirim looked like. Andy Yildirim looked like a kid that saw Santa Claus for the first time and decided, I'm just gonna just stay right here and do nothing, right? So, and then on top of that, you had, and then another thing is the fight being stopped like it was in the third round when he was sitting on the stool like that, like.
Retired on the stool, yeah.
Listen, man. I'm a boxing fan. I'm also a man, and I'm also, I consider myself I'm a former fighter too. I'm a warrior. I have to go out on my shield. Like I want to see blood. I want to see somebody laid out, stretched out on the ground. I want to see that. And after watching him, what he did to Callum Smith, and then watching him stop the fight like this with Yildirim. No, man. I want my money back, man. You know what I'm saying? I got buyer's remorse. This is horrible. So, like, you guys ever watch Players Club?
Yeah, I've seen that film. Yeah.
Hey, remember the scene when he asked her, "Damn, did you hit her at all?" That's what it seems like when I watched that fight. I said, damn, I'm looking at Canelo Alvarez face like, damn, all them just to touch him? I mean, Jesus Christ. So that was bad. It was so bad that even Mauricio Solomon himself, which I wrote the article on, said that they're going to have to look at the mandatory process. So that's how bad it was. But I wasn't shocked. They did a great con job of trying to sell us that fight, making us believe that there was going to be some Yildirim we was going to see differently. No, we were going to see the same Yildirim that we saw that was knocked out. He was brutally knocked out by Chris Eubanks Jr. and the same Yildirim that lost to Anthony Durrell. We didn't see anything different. So Canelo beating him wasn't a surprise. Now him fighting Billy Joe Saunders, this is, for me, I'm intrigued in the fight because what intrigues me is what Billy Joe Saunders we're going to get, because Billy Joe Saunders has lately has not been looking like the Billy Joe Saunders I remember when he fought Chris Eubanks, when he beat Andy Lee. That Billy Joe Saunders, he has shown, sometimes lack of focus. Remember, he went up to 200-some pounds, and he's had some lackluster performances here lately. So I'm intrigued to see if we're going to get the Billy Joe Saunders that we saw back when he was going, coming up through boxing. Like I said, when they fought Andy Lee, if we're going to get that Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo Alvarez, if we get that Billy Joe Saunders against Canelo Alvarez, that's what intrigues me, because right now Canelo is on fire. Canelo is looking like he is unstoppable. And if we get the Billy Joe Saunders that we used to seeing, I think that can be a problem for Canelo Alvarez. I dare say he beats him only because I don't think you beat Canelo Alvarez in a 12-round fight. And I'm only saying it because of the judging. Like Canelo, there's a thing that me and my man 2K 3 King Boxing say. Canelo Alvarez is the only fighter in boxing that can get a split decision draw from being knocked out. He can get knocked out, and it'll be a split decision draw. You know what I'm saying?
Benji said the same thing earlier. Yeah,
right. See, Canelo is that fighter. That's the guy that if you knock him down, the ref say, "Hold on, wait a minute. He slipped. Get up, Canelo." So it's just going to be interesting to see what. That's the only thing that intrigues me is what Billy Joe Saunders is going to show up. But I still think Canelo wins, only because I don't think Canelo is the type of fighter that you have to. You can't be getting yourself up for Canelo. You already have to be there. You can't say, "Okay, I'm fighting Canelo. I'm going to put on my A game." No, you have to already have your A game 2 or 3 fights before Canelo Alvarez, and every fight going into face Canelo Alvarez. So, but I'll be honest with you, I definitely like the matchup. Like, it's worthy of it's worthy of me saying and giving him credit for wanting to be an undisputed fighter, because he's doing the things. He's keeping his word. He's fighting Billy Joe Saunders. He fought Callum Smith, and then next, of course, is going to be Killer. So. I definitely like the matchup. I don't think Billy Joe Saunders beat Canelo Alvarez in a 12-round decision fight.
Wow. All right, guys, let's engage some of the viewers. Guys, get your comments in. Smash that like button. Bowl 3 Kings. Benji's boxing in the building. Okay. All right. Okay. What's blazing in sports says Benji. Once Billy Joe gets hit, his confidence will go out the window. It's not easy to hit Billy Joe, though.
No, it's not. But the thing is, what worries me a little bit about this fight is I think it's going to be quite a chess match. It's not. I don't see this being as blood and guts war or anything like that. It's going to be much more of a technical chess match of boxing, a lot of movement, a lot of jabbing. And I think if Billy Joe gets one put on him early that wobbles him or shakes him, I can see him getting on his bike and just seeing out the fight over the 12 rounds and just staying away and sort of getting to the end of the bell, getting to the end of the 12, getting to that final bell. And then, you know how it is. You've got hardcore Billy Joe Saunders fans out there. While Billy Joe's moving and jabbing, and if he gets to the end of the fight, gets that 12 round, gets to the end of the 12, the Billy Joe Saunders fans are going to be going, look, he schooled Saul Alvarez, he schooled Canelo, he schooled him, he was just robbed on points. But in fairness, in complete brutal honesty, I actually think this fight could turn out to be a bit of a stinker. I think it could be. I think Billy Joe, if things aren't going his way early on, I think he could get on his bike, stay away, not engage, smother, hug, that sort of thing. And I think it could turn into a real stinker of a fight. It'll be a chess match. It'll be engaging, but the problem with chess matches and engaging fights, when they start to turn in one person's favor, the opponent, in this case Billy Joe Saunders, could end up just turning the fight into a real sort of snooze fest. And I do worry about that a little bit.
Oh, Bo, is that something that you agree with? Do you feel like once Canelo starts to, hit Billy Joe, that the fight, might turn into some form of damage limitation?
Yeah, I don't think the fight's going to be an exciting fight as they think it is, because Billy Joe Saunders is a tactician. Okay, he's a southpaw. He is right. You know what I'm saying? He is the quintessential southpaw technical fighter, or boxer rather. Okay, so it's not going to be exciting from that aspect, because he's not going to look to come and jump on Canelo Alvarez. He's not going to look to come and overpower Canelo Alvarez. He knows Canelo Alvarez have seen that, and that does nothing to him. He watched Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez. That does nothing to Canelo Alvarez. So his only chance is to stick with the game plan that got him there, which is boxing. So I don't expect it to be something like that. I don't think that he falls apart when he gets hit, because he's, at the end of the day, he's still a fighter. And I haven't seen anybody hit Billy Joe Saunders and make him be like, oh no, I don't want to be in this ring.
You have to get hit first. He doesn't take a lot of damage.
Right. But what he will do is, and this is why I agree with Benji, he'll get hit and he'll get on his bicycle trying to keep it a boxing match. That's what he will do. If he gets hit, yeah, I think he'll even furthermore try to make it a boxing match, which is advantage Canelo Alvarez, because Canelo has turned into quite the boxer. And mind you, we know what the 4 criteria of scoring a fight is: effective aggression, clean punching, defense, and ring generalship. And if Billy Joe Saunders, all he has to do is ease up on one of those things, which is not being aggressive and trying to be more boxing, Canelo Alvarez can appear to be the aggressor, not be effective, because it's Canelo Alvarez, and he'll get scored the victory simply because of that. So that's my biggest fear, is Billy Joe trying to turn in too much of a boxing match, that the advantages are going to Canelo Alvarez, because anything you do will make it look like that's the Canelo Alvarez game plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I think effective aggression is the key there, because Canelo Alvarez has got it in bucket loads. Billy Joe Saunders not so much at all.
That's a good point, Benji. That's a real good point.
Yeah. All right. Okay, guys, we're gonna engage the viewers. Guys, smash that like button. We got Bo from Three Kings Boxing in the building, and Benji. We are talking BJ Saunders against Canelo, May the 8th. Wow, I'm really excited for this fight. It's what Billy Joe's been waiting for, the whole of his career. He wanted that big career-defining fight. He's got it. May the 8th. Let us know how you think he's going to get on. All right. Okay, so Ross saying he wants to see Canelo against Andrade, Bivol, Benavidez, Charlo. Okay, to you, Bo, right? I've seen in some of the boxing forums, some people actually saying that Caleb Plant is Billy Joe in his prime. I've seen that. The way how Plant is right now, that evasive style, hit not get hit, the slick style, completely mobile, is Billy Joe 5 years ago. Is that something you agree with in the comments?
No, I don't think so, because the one thing about Billy Joe 5 years ago was Billy Joe was he was a very aggressive boxer that was able to come at you, dodge punches, and hit you back and counter. Caleb Plant, on the other end, he just looks to, you know, move and get out of the way of your punches. And he kind of takes a little bit of a time to like he's not as offensive minded as Billy Joe Saunders was. Even now, from a boxing standpoint, you can say that, you know, that these guys are good, slick boxers. But I just think that if you watch Billy Joe Saunders, in my opinion, was a better counterpuncher than Caleb Plant was back 5 years ago. Billy Joe Saunders was able to stay in the pocket, dodge your punches, but then also maintain his offensive going, which is something that you don't necessarily see all the time from Caleb Plant. And Plant can be hit. Plant has he has stamina issues sometimes in some fight. That was never a thing with the old Billy Joe Saunders. Now, and I don't think so much the stamina issues with Billy Joe. I just think it's the fact that he goes so far up in weight that when he comes down, it affects him once he gets in the ring. You know. So yeah, there's a huge difference to me between Plant and Billy Joe 5 years ago. But if you want to talk about how they are as slick fighters, yeah, I'll agree that they were very good slick fighters. I just think it's not as hard to hit Plant as it was Billy Joe. I mean, Caleb Plant last fight, he acted like he couldn't get out of the way of the damn jab.
Okay, all right, guys, smash that like button. We're talking Billy Joe Saunders versus Canelo. Okay, Kid Cash, what do you think about Eddie and Canelo's relationship, Benji? Eddie Hearn's laughing right now. He's got AJ and Canelo promoting both.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, Canelo is an ultimate cash cow, isn't he? I mean, the guy is just attracting money and oozing money from every pore of his skin. And as we know, Eddie Hearn is driven by money. I don't think it's offensive for me to suggest that. And I think if Eddie was sat next to me right now, he'd go, "Yeah, I am." Yeah, he loves a quid or two. So, yeah, it's a match made in heaven, really, isn't it?
Hey, is that something you'd agree with, Bo? Do you think, Eddie Hearn, he's been talking about how great it is to promote Canelo, but to promote Canelo and have promote AJ versus Fury as well in the same year. That's amazing stuff.
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to be too long about this. Eddie Hearn got a gift from, he got the ultimate Christmas gift from Santa Claus. You know how you make out that Christmas list, and there's two things on that list. Like you write this list, and you say Santa, but I really want these two things out of everything. Eddie Hearn's got two people. Yeah. Right. Eddie Hearn's basically got two people that's very easy to promote because they pretty much promote themselves. That's Anthony Joshua and Canelo. And anybody could have made Anthony Joshua, any promoter. Hell, the three of us could have made Anthony Joshua what he is right now. You know what I'm saying? You know, the three of us could have started, you know what I'm saying? The 3KB Benji pep talk promotions, and we could have made Anthony Joshua what he is today because he has the looks, he has the physique, he has the charisma. So he's just one of those fighters that would have made it. And Canelo Alvarez is Canelo Alvarez. He's the hottest ticket. So yeah, man, definitely. I will say this: the promoting for Alvarez and Yildirim was much better than what I've seen from Golden Boy. What they were doing with Canelo on the zone. There was some times people didn't know Canelo was fighting when Golden Boy was with the zone. So I definitely think that the promotion that they was doing from a social media standpoint was, and if I'm wrong, of course, people out there, y'all can tell me. But I mean, I saw Canelo everywhere when they was promoting for this Yildirim fight.
Okay, all right. Interesting points. Okay, so Welsh Woody. Okay, Canelo always picks opponents at the right time. I can't see Billy Joe doing a lot, to be honest, and Canelo will beat his body up. Benji.
Canelo always picks opponents at the right time. It's an interesting one. I can understand why Welsh Woody says that, but let's just look at Billy Joe Saunders for just a second here. Billy Joe Saunders, if he's suffering from inactivity, coronavirus aside, but if he has not been active in the as active as he should have been in the last 5 or 6 years, that's his own fault. That's down to him. I mean, you could say, oh, well, it's a management thing or a promoter thing. you got to take responsibility for your own career. So as we've heard already a number of times, about Billy Joe's in the past, he's blown up in weight. He's got fat in between fights and had a lot to weight to lose. We know that this has happened. Who's to blame for that? Only Billy Joe Saunders is to blame for that. If you know you're in the running for a fight with Canelo, you should be training every single day like the fight is tomorrow. Because like you've said already, Beez, in this live chat, Canelo is the big fight. It's the career-defining fight. It's the fight that you might only get once in a career, in a lifetime, if you're really, really lucky. So if there is the slightest chance that opportunity might present itself, you should be ready. You should be ready to go. So anyone from middleweight upwards, middleweight to light heavyweight, because we've seen Canelo boxing these divisions recently over the last couple of years, you should be thinking, well, I'm in line for a Canelo shot here. We know that he's only going to give us 4 to 8 weeks notice. So let's make sure we're in shape. Let's make sure we're active. Let's make sure we're fighting a decent level of opposition. Because, again, like Free Kings has said in this already, leading up to a Canelo fight, you don't want to be fighting boxers that are levels and levels below. You need 3 or 4 fights pre-Canelo that are, like an Andrade, a Charlo, a Bivol, any of these guys. You've got to be fighting at top level so that when you go in against Canelo, you've got a bit of momentum behind you. You're in the best shape you can be in. You've got the best experience. You've got no ring rust on you. You're active. You're at the peak of your game. So you can't blame Canelo for someone else not being in the peak form that they could be in. Make sense? I mean, I completely understand why Welsh Woody has said what he said, but you can't lay that at Canelo's doorstep. It's more to do with the opponent not being ready than it is Canelo.
Yeah, I mean, bro, that's something we've seen. We've seen over this whole pandemic, Canelo's kept himself in the gym, in peak physical condition. He's been active out there with the fights as well. This is what greatness is made of, right? Always staying in the gym, always staying ready.
Yeah, as far as Canelo picking his opponents at the right time, well, they all do. It's not so much as the fight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of boxing. Like, fights happen at the time that the promoters feel now is the time to strike. Okay, and we can look at a lot of fights, and I go through so many fights. I mean, Sugar Ray Leonard fought Marvin Hagler after Hagler was in his restaurant, and Hagler told him, "Man, I'm thinking about retiring." And Leonard admitted and said, "But it's the perfect time to fight you." Sugar Ray openly admitted it when Marvin Hagler told him, "Man, it's getting hard to make weight. I'm thinking about retiring. I'm tired. Oh God, this is the perfect time to fight him." Anthony Joshua fighting Vladimir Klitschko, who hadn't fought since losing to Tyson Fury. So he was older in age, and it had been 2 years since he fought, right? So, Deontay Wilder trying to fight Tyson Fury,
First time, when he was out for 2-3 years.
Right. So, it's not a Canelo thing. Fighters starting out. Now, when you first start out in the game, then you don't necessarily register that kind of power. But once you reach a certain plateau in boxing, you pick the fights that you feel are that's gonna make you the most money and get you the most notoriety. You pick the fighters that have the bigger name. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I want a big event. Who do I fight? Like, think about it. He fought Callum Smith. All right. When was that not the right time to fight Callum Smith? He was the champion.
Good point. Good point.
All right. Okay, he's fighting Billy Joe Saunders.
However, to that point, all right, this is from the viewers, okay, that I've seen in the community boxing forums. People are saying that Canelo wanted to fight Callum Smith because of the Ryder performance, all right? They thought, that night Smith was below par, and Canelo saw that and got in contact with Eddie Hearn to make the fight straight away on that basis. Then also Coldwell as well, Anthony Yard.
Kovalev.
Yeah, exactly. Anthony Yard just wore down Kovalev And what, 2 months later, Canelo fights Kovalev.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. When you have that kind of stature in boxing, and you have that sort of cachet, you can tell a dude, hey man, I'm giving you a 7-week training camp now. You know, you want this money? Come on up here and get it. Okay. And that's what you know. So what choice do you have? So I can't just put that on Canelo. If you look at boxing, this has been sort of the thing with boxing. Fights happen when the entities and the powers that be say, hey, I mean, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. That was 5 years way too late. Manny Pacquiao wasn't the same furious Manny Pacquiao. But now Floyd had been older too, right? But you know, so yeah, man, I'm not gonna put that on Canelo Alvarez, man. That's a boxing thing. But I will say,
definitely.
Right, but I'll definitely say that what was the second part of what he said about something about body?
He's basically gonna go to the body of Billy Joe and then basically saying that would be all night. That would be a good night, sorry. Yeah,
that's what you have to do if you want to slow Billy Joe Saunders down. You got to beat the body to keep the feet stationary. You know, so that's kind of what like if you know. I mean, that's boxing 1-on-1. You know, you beat the boxer to the body. You're not going to hit him in the head. You beat him to the body because you want to slow him down. And that's what Canelo better do. Like that better be the game plan. You know what I'm saying? I mean, think about it. The game plan against Colin Smith was to punch at his left arm, so I don't have to worry about the hook. That was the game. Like
because he got a great left hook. He got a great left hook and a good double jab. Colin Smith. Yeah.
So the actual game plan was damage his left arm so he don't hit me with the hook and the jab. So yeah, man, Canelo's a smart fighter. What they're doing over them was great. And that's why I'm saying it's going to be hard for Billy Joe because anything Canelo do, especially if they have a crowd there, anything Canelo does is going to just overwhelm influence the judges simply because the crowd is going to go wild. You know, and let me say this: I do believe normally British fans travel, but I do believe that British fans, I don't know how many may come out for Billy Joe Saunders. I'm curious to see how many Brits might come and fly for a Saunders fight.
Well, look, I mean, I'm telling you now, I've been to Billy Joe Saunders fight live. I went to see him fight Willie Monroe Jr. Yeah, I went to that fight, Copper Box. Yeah, were you there, Beez? Did you go to that one?
I think I might have gone to that one. I think so.
Well, put it this way, it was a lovely night of boxing. Don't get me wrong, absolutely loved it. But when Billy Joe Saunders came out to box, bearing in mind it was the main event, you had the pick of the seats. You could have gone and sat ringside if you wanted. There was space anywhere and everywhere. If you bought a cheap seat that night, you could have gone in with your cheap ticket and then gone and sat anywhere in the arena when that main event was on. So, and again, this has been a problem with Billy Joe Saunders' career. He has not had the following of, you know, people like Ricky Hatton or Anthony Joshua. He's not one of these people, or like a Josh Warrington, you know, someone who's got a whole town behind him. That's not Billy Joe Saunders. Because unfortunately, you know, obviously this is the reason why I come on Pep Talk is we talk about boxing. We don't get dragged into all the other nonsense. But we do have to, at this point, mention that certain things that Billy Joe Saunders has done outside of boxing, outside the ring, it's a bit Marmite. People either find it very, very funny and entertaining, or people really dislike it. Some of these antics that he's done over the years. So, you know, normally, you know, when we have a British fighter go over to the States for a big, you know, defining title fight, you know, coronavirus aside again, we have had big crowds go over. Unfortunately, I don't think Billy Joe has that massive following. Okay, the traveling community is strong in Britain, and like with Tyson Fury, a lot of travelers come out to watch Billy Joe Saunders and support their own, which is great. But you're never going to see, like, you know, thousands like we saw for Ricky Hatton or anything like that. You're not going to see that with Billy Joe Saunders.
Well, you never know. You know, this whole lockdown and pandemic out here, it might get people just wanting to go and attend some boxing abroad and support the Brit. Well, you never know. You never know.
We're not allowed on a plane at the moment, are we? I don't think, can we even get out of the country?
Yeah, that's a good point. But anyway, okay. James Smith, Billy Joe could look like a deer in the headlights after 3 rounds. He's never fought at this level. Can't see him solving the puzzle. Bo, is that something that you would agree with? 3 rounds?
No. And here's the reason why. I do agree that he'll find it difficult solving the puzzle only because of the type of fighter Canelo Alvarez is. Canelo Alvarez has shown himself to be an elite level fighter. Okay. And Billy Joe, like I said, we haven't seen him fight. Oh man. When I think about, see, this is why it was important for Billy Joe to fight Demetrius Andrade. Because I thought Andrade was that type of fighter that had that high skill level where we would see just how good Billy Joe is if he was to win. Like I thought Andrade was going to be the one that would test him. So it would have been important to see him fight a high quality fighter like Andrade. And when it didn't happen, it's like, okay, then again, when you have to ask yourself what fighter is going to show up, that is the beginning of the problem right there for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I never had to say what Anthony Joshua is going to show up, what whether you like him or not, what Tyson Fury is going to show up, what Floyd Mayweather is going to show up, what Canelo Alvarez. Like when you look at some of the all-time great fighters, you go back in history, you never had to ask yourself what Marvin Hagler we're going to get, what Muhammad Ali we're going to get, what you know what I'm saying, what who Lennox Lewis we're going to get, right? So you never had to ask yourself. When you have to ask yourself, man, what Billy Joe Saunders is going to show up, then you're behind the 8 ball already right there. So for me, I don't think he'll look like a deer in headlights because Billy Joe Saunders is a very mentally, in my opinion, and I haven't seen nothing to deter me from that, he's shown me enough mental toughness for me to believe that he understands what this moment is. And he realizes he cannot in any shape, form, or fashion go into this fight looking defeated. If you appear defeated against Canelo Alvarez like Yildirim, you're done. So Billy Joe Saunders, whether you like him or not, he's very arrogant, he's very cocky, and he's shown to have the mental toughness. Because think about you mentioned it best, Benji. He's done a lot of offensive things to people, but it hasn't changed who he is. So I have to give it to him on that aspect. Like he takes the heat, he takes all the heat that comes, and he keeps going. Like nothing has caused him to not be able to fight anymore, and he keeps on going. So I'll definitely give him that. But I think it's going to be hard for him to solve it. I don't think he'll look like a deer in the headlights after 3 rounds, only because he is a very confident world. He's a very confident world champion for a fight that he's been wanting for a very long time. So I don't think he'll look like a deer in the headlights in 3 rounds. I think as the fight go on, he'll realize this is a lot tougher than what I thought. But I just don't see him looking like a deer in headlights, because if he does, at any point when he looks like that, he's done. Canelo got it.
All right. Question for me to the panel. Would we say that Billy Joe's chances of beating Canelo would have increased if he fought at middleweight against Canelo? Benji?
I don't know. So because I've got the memory and knowledge of a sieve. So this fight is signed at 168, yeah?
That's right. Super middle.
I don't think it really matters, to be completely honest. I think just because from the point of view, all that 168 tells me is neither fighter's going to be weight drained. No one's going to have a particular weight advantage, because obviously Canelo's come up from lighter weights and he's filled out and filled into it. Same with Billy Joe Saunders. To be fair, I quite like this fight at 168 because it just means there's very few, if any, excuses. I think someone in the comments said that Billy Joe Saunders was better at 160 because he was quicker, lighter on his feet, that sort of thing. But I think £8. I think down at 160, I don't think Canelo's going to come in particularly weight drained, or it's going to diminish him in any way. I actually think this is one of the very rare occasions when the weight that they come in at really isn't a defining factor of the fight. So yeah, long story short, I don't think it matters. I think the same outcome it would be at 160 as it would be at 168. I think it's one of them. I'll shut up now.
All right, guys, smash that like button. All right, so Bo, would you have rated Billy Joe's chances more at 160 than 168?
That depends on when that fight would have took place. If it had took place pre-Gennady Golovkin, maybe the chance would have been slightly different. But post-Gennady Golovkin, no. Canelo Alvarez post-Gennady Golovkin, like after he had beat Gennady Golovkin, no, that Canelo Alvarez, especially if you watch the first Gennady Golovkin fight, then you watch the second Gennady Golovkin fight, no. You have to, one thing that you have to, and then of course, you're talking about a Billy Joe Saunders that during that same time period at 160, we started seeing him become undisciplined, and therefore his performance in the ring started going down. So I don't think if the fight would have happened at 160, it would have been a big difference. I'm with Benji. I like it at 168 because I thought Billy Joe really hurt himself when he didn't fight for a year and then he blew all the way up to 220 pounds and then went back down to 160. I think he really hurt himself when he allowed his body to go up like that. And I think that now that it's at 168, I think it's a lot easier for Billy Joe to maintain himself from a physical standpoint. And the same thing with Canelo Alvarez. So I just don't think it would have been any different at 160, only because you've given the fight that Canelo had when the two fights from him fighting Gennady Golovkin, and then you look at the performance of Billy Joe going down when he had a couple of them tighter defenses at 160 after that long layoff. So the perfect time would have been when Canelo grabbed that belt off Miguel Cotto and Billy Joe Saunders would have fought him then. That would have been definitely more of a fight because Canelo still wasn't the complimentary boxer he is now. He still sort of had bricks in his shoe. This Canelo, so if he'd have fought him like I said, the Gennady Golovkin time frame, no.
All right, interesting conversation, man. All angles, man. Bo, you have to keep spinning it, man. You always put a spin on it, man. Well, I do agree. The reason I don't want to say this, the reason why I come on this show and the reason why I do my man Mike pound for pound is I like shows where we can have intelligent conversations about the sport, even if we disagree. If we can logically explain our point of view, that's not being a hater, that's not being, dumb. It's showing that we're for the sport of boxing and not just a fighter or an entity. And that's the reason why I come on the show and I talk to you. And that's, and so far, my man talking to my man over here, Benji, he's pointed that out too, man. I think that's what's missing in boxing is the intelligent level of conversating about a fight and the point of view of the fight and giving a logical reason of what you're saying. All right, guys, smash that like button and we'll read some of your comments also as well. Okay, so Vibe N2L, Canelo won't work the body as much as people think. BJS will get caught with looping rights and straights. Saunders doesn't keep range enough. Benji, is that something that you agree with? I think he does keep range well, but each their own opinion.
Well, I've just had a very, very quick look at the stats of both boxers. Billy Joe Saunders is 5'11", and Saul Canelo Alvarez is 5'8". So if it was me and I was in the Billy Joe Saunders corner, I'd be saying you need to move, you need to jab, you need to stay away from this fella because he's going to try and get past that jab and he's going to try and get to your body, get in close, and then probably wing one over the top. So I think Vibe is, I agree with him slightly on the looping right hands, but I think that comes later. That comes after you've closed the gap. So if I'm in the Canelo Alvarez corner, what I'm saying to him is, look, you know this fella's awkward. He's got the southpaw stance and the jab. He's going to be looking to double and triple that jab because he doesn't want you anywhere near him. He's going to try and stay off the ropes. He's going to move a lot. You need a lot of head movement. You need to come in quick, maybe cause some angles, get on the outside of that jab. But if you can get to the body and get him back to the ropes, go downstairs and then wing one over the top upstairs. Work that body because, as Bo's told us, rightly so, as soon as you start working the body, you can slow down those legs. You stop your target from moving so much. But after you've softened up the body, then you can bring those shots in over the top while he's too busy thinking about his ribs. Again, this is not, like Bo said, this is pretty much boxing 101. If I'm saying this now, the corners are going to be saying to these boxers, saying these things to their boxers, and it's how this plays out and who negates who. So I think Canelo will work the body, but I think that will then lead on to these looping shots over the top as the fight progresses. But ultimately, Billy Joe Saunders has got to have a hell of a jab. He's got to keep it at range. He either wants to be a million miles away from Alvarez or just have him at the end of the jab. Don't want to get in close with him because that's Canelo's. That's his home. He loves being in that. As what the Americans say, Bo, tell me if I'm being wrong, but they talk about the pocket. They always talk about his pocket. British boxing fans like myself, we don't talk about the pocket that much. We just talk about getting on the inside.
Because
but
we like
Canelo,
the pocket.
Well, this is it. But Canelo is when he wants to box in the pocket, he does it as good as anyone I've ever seen, and that's what I think he's going to be looking to get into that little pocket and then cause serious damage.
All right, Bo, to you. Back in 2016, we saw Amir Khan fight Canelo in Vegas, right? In Vegas. And up until the knockout, many people watching that fight thought Amir Khan was doing bits. They thought he was doing really well up until that point. Billy Joe Saunders is a mover, right? Mm-hmm. He has similar lateral movement abilities like Amir Khan, right? But slightly different. Is that the way for Billy Joe to box like what Amir Khan was doing, but not engage in the pocket like what Amir Khan eventually did?
Okay. Now there's two factors that we have to factor in that Khan fight. Number one, Canelo was allowing it to happen because he was looking to land that one big shot because he knew
feint to the body. Oh, yeah. Because
he knew about Amir Khan's chin, right? He knew that. He knew I'm the bigger man. I think Canelo Alvarez came in as a heavyweight that night.
Mexican beef.
Yeah, man. Canelo Alvarez came in, man, on that night. Canelo Alvarez, you know how you have that video game where you're level 5 and you test your skills against the level 99 and the level 99 come in looking like the Hulk and you're looking like this little puny Dr. David Bruce Banner. That's what that was like, man. So in that one, Canelo Alvarez, he was only looking to land one punch, and that's why Amir Khan was having success. But also, I don't believe Billy Joe Saunders has the hand speed that Amir Khan had at that time to duplicate that right now. And then on top of that, Canelo Alvarez's defense is a lot better than that Amir Khan fight because again, he was only looking to land that one big punch. So I wouldn't use the Amir Khan formula for Billy Joe only because in order for you to throw those many volumes of punches, you have to be flat-footed to throw those volumes of punches, right? And you don't want to be flat-footed against a Canelo Alvarez. You want to be up on your toes because he is a good counter puncher, and he is good at punching in between. He's good at punching you in between your punches, right? He's gotten a lot better at punching you in between the punches. That's what he did to Callum Smith. So saying that Canelo is not going to go to the body as often as people think. Watch him when he fought Callum Smith. Because regardless of what you want to say, punching someone in the arm, it's because where are the arms? The arms are down by the body. So he was doing a lot of that, and he was slowing down Callum Smith with some of those body punches first. And Callum Smith was much taller with the much longer arm reach. I also believe he said Billy Joe doesn't keep, he doesn't keep distance. Well, yeah, Billy Joe fights at a range that's comfortable to him. As a boxer, that's what you do. Floyd, like, how many fights have we saw Floyd Mayweather maintain distance? He fights at a distance that's comfortable for Floyd, so he can hit you with that pull counter. That it's coming every time he does it. Like when you miss, you're like, fuck. Like when you throw at Floyd and you miss, you're like, oh shit. Like it's coming.
But what about the other one, right? Whenever you see Floyd, you go back, watch Floyd Mayweather's career. He'll 3 steps backwards into the corner, 1, 2, 3, and then that right hand's coming. And the thing is, he does it so often. But I mean, what must it be like in being in that ring? You're concentrating, you're walking towards Floyd. He takes 3 steps back, and then all of a sudden, bam! You should know that's coming. You know it's coming, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing you can do, and so if he would have said it's going to be hard for Billy Joe to maintain range, that would have been a better statement because Canelo he's a stalker, like he did with Callum Smith, just like he even did with Yildirim. Even like he did with Sergey Coldwell and then the Gennady Golovkin second fight. Canelo Alvarez has gotten very good at being effectively aggressive. His effective aggression coming at you, dodging punches while hitting you back. So it can be hard for Billy Joe to maintain distance. And what is the number one thing you want to do with a boxer? You want them moving their feet, because if he's moving his feet, he's not punching. Billy Joe is not going to fight off the back foot. And so I think that aspect, it'll be hard for him to maintain it. But like I said earlier, you got to go to the body, because if you don't go to the body, then you're looking at trying to hunt this dude down all night. And that's not, Canelo Alvarez is way too smart of a fighter not to go to that body and he's too smart to not even be effective going to the body, man. He's too smart for that.
All right. Guys, smash the like button. All right. Subscribe. You ain't subscribed already to Pep Talk UK. We got Benji in the building. We got both from Free Kings Boxing. Hey, shout out freekingsboxing.com. The latest boxing articles on there. Good work out in the States. All right, guys. All right, so we got Canelo taking on Billy Joe May the 8th. Great fight ahead. Big fight. Billy Joe's biggest fight of his career. He maintains he's got the skill set to beat Canelo. Let us know what you think. Okay. QM. Range is good, but he's not explosive enough. Benji.
Could well have a point. I mean, when we have a look at Gennady Golovkin and those 2 fantastic fights that he had with Canelo, and you look at how hard Golovkin punches, he didn't put Canelo down. He might have hurt him with the odd shot, but you didn't see Canelo do some sort of crazy dance across the ring, and be all over the place and be hanging. Canelo's got a chin. He really has.
Yeah.
So to knock Canelo out, you're going to have to hit him with something that he doesn't see coming. You're going to have to set up the shot, something that he's not expecting. That's one thing. But you've got to have some raw, blunt force trauma. You've got to have the power there to do it. And if Golovkin ain't got the dynamite to do it, then I don't know who the hell has. So I do think that the issue here, and go back right to the start when Bo came online, he said, well, if it goes 12 rounds, more than likely Canelo's going to get his hand raised, because Canelo's going to be 4 or 5 rounds up on the scorecard before he's even walked to the ring. So if you don't possess the power to win by knockout, and your only way is getting through 12 rounds, but we know you ain't going to get your hand raised, where does that leave you, really?
Okay. All right. Benji, I'm going to slightly counter that, all right?
Yeah.
When Fury went to Germany, you remember what was happening pre-fight, right?
Yeah.
You remember the odds stacked against Fury, Billy Joe's good mate, right? The impossible can be done. It can be.
Yeah, but I mean, I do remember all the shenanigans that were going on in Germany. I mean, I'll be 2 seconds, Bo. I'll be 2 seconds. I promise you.
Just chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I do remember. You know, the Team Fury were pulling Sponge out from the ring, saying the ring's too spongy, and all sorts of shenanigans were going on. All sorts of shenanigans were going on. But I would argue that the financial powers surrounding Canelo are still greater than the financial powers that were surrounding Klitschko at that time. But anyway, I'll let Bo in.
No. Bo.
Oh, okay. You got it.
You're downloading information. You were just downloaded information, right? All right. Download Loma style.
No, sometimes I'll have a lag. I'll have a little lag over here. I'm glad as hell you mentioned that. Here's where it's different with Billy Joe and Canelo versus Vitaly Klitschko and Tyson Fury. Vitaly Klitschko was not the juggernaut face of boxing that Canelo Alvarez is. And Tyson Fury at that time had peaked. You look at the run he went through, he had already been sharpened. He was the taller man. He knew he was going up against a Vladimir Klitschko, whose inside fighting game is what he would need to win, and he wasn't an inside fighter. He knew that he had to frustrate him, and he was very good at what? Getting in the head of fighters. You can't get in Canelo Alvarez's head. Abel Sanchez tried that with Canelo Alvarez in the Gennady Golovkin second fight.
What about Mayweather? What about Mayweather? He got ahead of him. Yeah. Canelo at the time when he was young.
And that's why you can't get in Canelo's head, because he's already had the best in the world do it to him. See? So once he's had the best in the world do it to him, you're not going to be able to get in his head. I think the dynamics is different because you had a special fighter in Tyson Fury fighting a Vladimir Klitschko that from a boxing standpoint was already viewed as a boring fighter and a lackluster fighter. And then the fight itself was lackluster, right? So there was no love affair on a global scale surrounding Vladimir Klitschko. There's a love affair on a global scale when it comes to Canelo Alvarez. And on top of that, there is a take it or leave it when it comes to Billy Joe Saunders. So it's harder for Billy Joe to accomplish what Tyson accomplished, because if you look at the position that he's in, it's way different than what Tyson was in. That you would fuck up the average boxing pundit with that question right there, Troby. That was good.
No.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I just want to add to that as well. Two other sort of little points. The Klitschko brothers were kind of seen as a bit toxic on the heavyweight division. They were seen as a bit of a cancer on the heavyweight division in some quarters, because they were seen as, they were, in my opinion, they were head and shoulders over a lot of the competition. And they had a very boring style. They weren't in necessarily exciting fights because there wasn't a hell of a lot of competition around to push them. Of course, Vitaly had a great go with Lewis, who then retired. So that was that out of the equation. And then there really wasn't a hell of a lot. So they were seen as more of a cancer on the heavyweight division rather than the saviors of it. Whereas Canelo is kind of the face of boxing over that side of the pond. The other issue as well that you have to remember with the Klitschko fight, Klitschko's wife at the time had all sorts of problems going on. I'm fairly sure she had some quite significant health problems. I don't think Vitaly's head was particularly in that fight. And I think he underestimated Fury. And I think Fury to some extent, Fury overperformed in that fight. He certainly performed better than Klitschko in his camp thought he was going to. And Klitschko's head wasn't in the game that night. And again, Canelo, face of boxing, everyone loves him, big draw that side of the pond. I don't think he has these mental these distractions outside the ring in the same way that Klitschko did that night.
Wow, this is heating up, man. This is really heating up, man. Different points of view and good points also. Guys, smash that like button. Get involved in the conversation. Okay, so here we go. Okay, Ricardo Miranda. It's going to be like Floyd Mayweather fight Canelo versus Billy. Okay, so he said it's going to be like the Mayweather fight versus Canelo with Billy. Bo, would you know, I would say that obviously, look, you know, Billy Joe, he's done it at all levels, you know, right from Southern area all the way to two-time world champion. You know, this is no mug here. This guy can really box. You know, he can really, really box. And he's fit, you know, he's 31 years of age, 30 victories. You know, he's been around for some time. You know, he's been embedded in the sport for a little while. Canelo at the time was a exciting young prospect out of Mexico, right? This is a lot different, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's going to be like Floyd when he fought Canelo Alvarez, only because that Canelo Alvarez was vastly inexperienced when it comes to fighting that level, right? Billy Joe has shown us flashes of his ability to be good and maybe even go to that next level. We just never got to see it. This is why, again, I know I bring this up. This is why the Andrade fight was so important, because we either would have saw something special or we would have realized, okay, he's not as great as we thought he was, right? When you get a fight like that, you're either going to find out, like every fighter has that one fight where you find out just how special they really are. Perfect fight you can take and you can look at is Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko. When Anthony Joshua got knocked down, or actually when he knocked Vladimir Klitschko down, gas tank ran out. Then he gets knocked down, he gets back up. We saw how special Anthony Joshua was in that moment, right? We saw it. You know, whether you want to say he fought a 2-year older, whatever, Vladimir Klitschko, he still fought a Vladimir Klitschko because power is the last thing that leaves you, right? So he still had to get himself up off the canvas. And like first he had to overcome being tired, get himself off the canvas, and then, you know, get himself back in the fight to win. Same thing with Ryan Garcia. We saw how special he was when he beat Luke Campbell. He had to get up off the canvas, right? Go back in there. So Billy Joe hasn't had that fight where we got to see how special he was, and I thought the Andrade fight would have gave us glimpses of it. We saw how special Canelo Alvarez was. I first saw it when he fought Austin Trout. Then we got another look at it again after the Floyd Mayweather fought. He fought Eslami Lauda, and he showed me how special he was because he learned from the Floyd fight what adjustments he had to make on the fly, and then now we're continuing to see it. So I don't think it's going to be like that because Billy Joe is not as inexperienced as Canelo was at the time he fought Floyd. But I think to the degree where we'll see a difference in levels between the two, I think from that aspect, it can be like Floyd versus Canelo Alvarez, only because right now, which it's funny because if you look at Canelo now, you can't just throw anybody in there. Like when they threw Yildirim in there, and for whatever reason, Mauricio Solomon said to himself, we had high expectations. And I'm thinking in Yildirim, and Anvi Yildirim, you had high expectations in Yildirim? What are you talking about? Canelo Alvarez has shown to be on that level where if you're not putting somebody a B level or higher in the ring with him, you're not going to get your money. You're just not going to get your money's worth. You know, he's proven that. And even when you throw guys, because listen, Colin Smith is, for all accounts, you know, whether you would want to talk about John Ryder, styles make fights. And the thing with John Ryder was this: when you have history with the guy that goes back to the amateur days, that guy knows you. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to be as effective as you think you're going to be because you're fighting the guy that knows you. You know what I'm saying? And he, like, think about Roy Jones versus Antonio Tarver. They had fought in the amateurs. Tarver had it in his gut and he knew Roy. That's why he was able to beat him, right? Not to mention Roy came down to 25 pounds, but it was a fighter he was familiar with from going through the amateurs.
Well, hold on, guys. Hold on, guys. We've got a special guest coming in. Dave Coldwell in the building. Wow.
What's happening? How we doing?
What's happening?
How you doing,
Boxing
Dave?
royalty. Boxing royalty in the house.
I won't go as far as that. How you doing, guys? Right?
We're doing well. You know, we're just kind of digesting the whole announcement that's hit us. You know, Sunday morning, Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, you know, people on the live stream are giving their points of view about this big fight on May 8th. Firstly, I'll ask you how you saw Canelo. How was his performance in your eyes on Saturday night?
Listen, we know what the opponent was. We knew what the opponent was before we chose to stay up, before we chose to watch it. Canelo's one of those fighters that I think I put a tweet out saying that I know that I'm a fan of his because I chose to stay up all those early hours to watch him against a guy that I knew he was going to squash whenever he wanted to, really. I thought it was good. I think he's very, very good. The subtle things that he does, he's, the punch picking, the variety of the attacks. Yildirim froze. I think, obviously he didn't have much in front of him, but he got rid of him. That's how, if you go back in time, you had James Toney, you had Roy Jones, and they would fight regular, and they would fight guys sometimes that weren't of their level. And you'd have a Roy Jones who'd go out there and look to get rid of him as soon as he can. And sometimes a James Toney would kind of drop to their level and it wouldn't look as great in those kind of fights. It's nice to see when fighters do fight guys that are well below the level, they go out and get rid of him and say, as if to say, look, I had to fight him, get rid of him, move on to the big one. And the fact that they've announced the big one for straight after, you look at the fights that Canelo's coming off the back of, he's fighting regular. These people that are moaning and things like that, he's fighting regular. He's not fighting once or twice a year. If he was fighting once or twice a year and he's fighting a Yildirim, you'd be like, Jesus, that's a waste. But he's fighting regular. So he gets a pass on that one. And I thought he looked very good. Yeah.
Dave, I mean, look, you work with fighters. I mean, you worked with Tony Bellew, a steam world champion. How important is it for fighters that want to achieve greatness to be active?
I think it is important. I think a busy fighter, a fighter that's in that routine, that rhythm, it's just a flow, and there's a lot of things in boxing that work better in a flow, and a fighter that's active is better than a fighter that's inactive. That doesn't mean that just because you're fighting once a year. Look at Mayweather, once a year, twice a year. You look at his time, everything's still spot on. But he's still in the gym all the time. He's still going through the drills. He's still working hard in the gym. So when he gets a green light to go and fight, he can still perform. What happens with a lot of fighters, the majority of fighters, is that when they're not active, they're not active. So they're kind of like not in the gym, or they're letting the body put on weight and walking around at a weight that's far greater than what they're actually competing at. And then when they come back down to the weight, it takes a bit away from them. So it depends on the individual, but I find that active fighters are better.
All right, before we get to the people that are tuned in, locked into the live stream, the fight itself for May the 8th, Dave, how do you see this one kind of unraveling? Billy Joe, Canelo.
Do you know what? I'll be honest with you. I've always thought that Billy's got the style to give Canelo problems, because if I look at Canelo's career throughout, and you see the tricky southpaws, the good movers, even though obviously Mayweather's a different kettle of fish, but the style, something that's very, very highly intelligent in the ring, got good ring generalship, and he's a good boxer, and a southpaw, I think has the best chance of beating Canelo. But whereas I give Billy quite quite a decent chance. Maybe a year ago, maybe. Now I'm kind of thinking in my head, and this isn't being, this isn't knocking Billy. It goes back to this activity side of things, what I'm talking about, and when a fight is in a flow. So the problem that I feel for Billy is, number one, is he a genuine super middleweight? I don't know. I think he could I think he could probably do middleweight. But I don't know his body, so I don't know. But he's inactive, and in between fights, he puts on a lot of weight. That's not beneficial for him. It's just when you see him in between fights, he's out of shape. There's no getting away from that. In the time that Billy's been inactive and out of shape, Canelo's been drilling in the gym, drilling, getting better, around his weight, in shape, whatever you want to call it, and then fighting. And he's fighting at a top, obviously forget about Saturday night, but you're talking about your Kovalevs, you're talking about your Callum Smiths. He's fighting good fighters, Danny Jacobs before that. He's fighting good fighters, top quality fighters. So, again, when you're competing at that level, it's almost like when you're being tested in fights, in anything that we do, if we're being pushed, we're being tested mentally as well as physically, we improve. You come through it, you improve. But if you're fighting people that aren't really on your level or aren't at where you are right now in your career, and you're kind of like coasting or going through in the comfort zone, you're not pushing them boundaries, you're not improving, you're staying within your ceiling. So I think right now, I'll be honest with you, I think Canelo wins the fight. I think my problem is, yes, Billy has a style, but is he going to be able to keep it up round after round after round? Yes, the first few rounds. Listen, a lot of these elite fighters, the first few rounds, they're quite nip and tuck, or the other guys in the fight with them. But what makes the elite different to everybody else is round 6 onwards, you start seeing the class and the levels alter the fight. And that's how I would see that this fight could go. Does Billy Joe hit hard enough to stop Canelo, to hurt him, to put him in any sort of trouble? I don't think so. If it's a close fight, does Billy Joe win it on points? I don't think so. Is Billy Joe to that much higher level to Canelo that he can win most rounds very, very clearly, where there's no argument to give it to Canelo? I don't think so. And that's where, for me, the problem lies. Even if Billy's razor sharp, on form, and fit, he has to win this fight so clearly to get a decision. Look at, and we always talk about it. Look at when Canelo fought Mayweather. Look how clear cut that fight was. But
one of the
judges.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, and you can say it shouldn't be all you want, but bottom line is, Canelo's an even bigger star now. He's a massive star now, and everything's hinged on him. And if it's close, then who are they going to side with? Yeah.
All right. Okay, guys, smash that like button. We got Bo from Free Kings Boxing in the building, Benji's Boxing, and Dave Coldwell in the building, looking cool, real cool. Bo, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I got something I want to say to Dave. First of all, man, how you doing?
I'm very good, thank you very much. How is yourself?
I'm all right, man. It's my first time being in the chat with you, with the YouTube guys. And I've seen you guys before, and I've come across you guys on social media and stuff like that before. And so, but here's my question. I want your opinion on something that I said earlier. And I said that the thing to me that hurt Billy Joe Saunders, as far as when he used to be, like, when you go back and you watch the Chris Eubanks, the Andy Lees, we're not looking at the same Billy Joe Saunders, because I felt he hurted himself when that time frame came, where he took some time off and he blew up to 220 pounds and he had to lose a massive amount of weight to get back down to 160. We started seeing a totally different Billy Joe Saunders. And I said that when I have to ask myself what Billy Joe Saunders is going to show up, when I have to ask that, when you look at some of the greatest fighters of all time, like I said, you never had to ask yourself what Muhammad Ali we're going to get, what Lennox Lewis we're going to get, what Floyd Mayweather going to get. When you have to ask yourself what fighter we're going to get going up against a guy in Canelo Alvarez, he's put behind the 8 ball. Would you agree with that, or do you have a different point of view?
So I think what you're talking about there, how you're describing it, for me, that's what makes a difference between elite and a very good fighter. You can be a very good fighter. Listen, there's until a lot of people don't see it until you're actually, you can watch people on YouTube, on TV, whatever you want to do. But until you're in that ring, that's when you understand the difference of elite to very good fighters. And like you're saying there, I don't know any elite fighter that doesn't live it, and is constantly even forget the money, because again, this is and it's not knocking fighters, but when there are certain fighters, when they win a world title or a couple of world titles and they get money in the bank, millions in the bank, they kind of take the foot off the pedal and they wait for a date, they wait for an announcement. When we start talking about a date, we're going to fight. Okay, I'm going to get into camp now. And then they start training. But unfortunately, at that point, they put on shitloads of weight. They've then got to spend a big portion of the first few weeks of camp to lose the weight. And then it's about bringing up to speed to where you was for the last camp. You're not really improving. I think elite fighters like your Andre Wards, like your Canelos, like your Mayweathers, people like that, go back to De La Hoya, Roy Jones, Trinidad, people that stayed at the top for a decade. That's elite shit. That's not staying at the top for a couple of years. And world champions, once you're world champion, world champions, you have to be a very, very good fighter to be a world champion. But to be an elite fighter, that's over a course of time. And staying there at the top of your sport, at the pinnacle of your sport for years consecutively. The money's coming in. You're getting big money every fight. You're getting more and more belts. But yet you still are in there learning your craft, improving your craft, drilling to improve as a fighter. And you're still improving as a fighter, as a world champion. And you've been there for so long. That's elite. And I think going back to what you're saying there, for me, I understood how good Billy Joe Saunders was when I was working with Adam Booth, Putzman for Andy Lee. Seeing Billy Joe up close and seeing him so razor sharp, he was brilliant. And I was like, wow, he's good. He's very, very good. And then I've been in a position where I've managed to see Billy spar when he was overweight and see how good he is. And you just think, shit, he's just so good. But that is him he's above everybody else. He's very, very good above everybody else. But elite, Canelo elite is a different level. It's another level up. And what I find is sometimes that lifestyle, that behavior, that not for the 10, 12 weeks to a fight, it's for the few years leading up to that. That's when it catches up on you, when you step into that next level, because to go in against the guys that are at the top level, you can't just live right for 12 weeks. It's not just about living right for 12 weeks. It's not just about, getting yourself in shape. I'm on my nutritionist. I'm getting up in the morning. I'm doing my runs. I'm doing this for 12 weeks, because you're already playing catch up because they are at that level, and then you get yourself in shape. You're improving as a fighter for 12 weeks or whatever. Then you need that bit of luck, because then you need them to have an off night as well. you know. So I think that's I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying there, and you know, I quite agree with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Benji, over to you. Would you say, okay, we're talking about, you know, elite fighters, right, at the top of their game, living that life. But for me, you know what? I'm talking about elite athletes. Like, you look at the Cristiano Ronaldos, you look at the Messis, you look at Anthony Joshua's, the Canelos. These guys, right, they live that life. They're never out of shape. They're never overweight. They're always sharpening the tools and perfecting themselves to be the best. And these guys thoroughly deserve, you know, all the accolades and success, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think from my point of view, as I said earlier in this live stream, Canelo just seems to be a sort of guy that is happy to be in the gym. He just seems to love it. If you see him on Instagram, social media, whatever, he just seems to be happy to be in there. Whereas I think even with some professional athletes, can be a bit of a grind. I mean, obviously Dave can give us a much better insight into this than us. But what I'd ask Dave is, first of all, without naming names, because, you know, obviously professionalism and that, but have you been in that situation where you've had a fighter come in 12 weeks out from a fight and they've been overweight and you've just thought to yourself, oh shit, we've got to spend 3 or 4 weeks playing catch up? And secondly, is happiness in the gym something that can contribute towards being that elite fighter that you talk about?
Yeah, on both counts. Yes, I have been in a position where somebody's come back and I've just thought, fucking hell, what you doing? You know what the irritating thing is when you're discussing this is a fight that might happen, so they know this is a fight that might happen, but they want to wait until the fight gets done. Right? Okay, training camp. I don't believe in training camps. For me, training camp is always around. So Jordan Gill, Hoppy Price, they fight. They have a week off. They're back in the gym. You know, to learn. We're not killing. You're not overtraining them, killing them. You're back in the gym, learning, developing, taking away your flaws, improving your assets. You know, and so yes, I've experienced fighters. Probably one fighter, to be fair, 1 or 2 fighters in my time that have come back out of shape, and it's like you're spending a big portion of this time that we've got in losing weight. And it's giving yourself a disadvantage. That's how I see it. What was the second part that you asked me? I forgot. Happiness
in the gym, because Canelo seems to be very, very happy and comfortable there. Do you think that plays a big part in being that elite fighter?
100%. So to be an elite fighter, it's not just one particular thing. It's not. You can have world-class attributes, but it doesn't mean you're going to become a world champion. Right, but if the boxing's so many different segments, and they all have to come together, or a majority of them have to come together for you to become a world champion. But then, if you want to go to the elite level, again, there's all sorts of different things, because you can have fighters that aren't very confident, but they check so many other boxes, and the opportunity comes, and they end up being a world champion. But I don't know an elite fighter, pound for pound, #1 fighters over the years that don't believe in their ability. A big part of their belief in their ability is what they've done in the gym for years, not for weeks, for years. And a big part of what they've done in the gym for years is not because they've had somebody standing over them saying to them, you need to work, you need to work, you need to work. I don't know. I've not come across any elite level fighters, pound for pound #1s, that have needed the coach to be riding their arse, telling them to work, to work, to work. All that. Why do you need somebody saying you need to work harder, work hard? You shouldn't. If you're going to be elite, they want to work hard. They want to drive themselves and push themselves more than anybody else out there can push themselves, because they want to be the best. So that comes from part of being, enjoying the training side of things, enjoying pushing. Even if they don't enjoy certain elements of training, they want to push themselves. They're not just content just to be at a level where they're just comfortable in in what they do. They want to test themselves constantly and push themselves constantly in every session. And like I said, there's so many different parts to having success in boxing, but that's that mindset of being happy to do the work. You don't have to be happy in the gym, but you have to be happy to do the work, not being pushed to do the work. Because ultimately, if you're being pushed to do the work, you're not going to push yourself when it matters. You can't have a fighter that the coach says I need to work on this. The minute the coach turns his back, he kind of takes his foot off the pedal. Listen, he might become a champion, but he's never going to be elite. He's never going to be the best, because there's somebody else in another gym that's on a par with him level-wise, ability-wise, skill-wise, chin-wise, whatever you want to call it, but he's willing to do more. So, you need to have the full package. It's a different, and all these elements can sometimes be the subtle differences that makes when you get in the ring and you're a very, very good fighter, but you're just one step behind all the way through against the elite level fighter.
All right. I'm going to fire this across the bow, right? This has just come up in the comments, all right? James Burrow, hope you're well, mate. Tyson Fury didn't live it for 3 years before the Wilder fight, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is a counterpunch. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, and it's a weak one at that, because here's why it's a weak counterpunch.
Yeah.
He didn't live it for 3 years, but he had I think it was 2 or 3 fights before he fought Deontay Wilder.
No, he's talking about the first fight, the very first one in LA, when he lost all that weight.
Right.
And yeah.
Right, yeah, but he had a couple of fights before he fought Deontay Wilder for the first time. Right?
I'm pretty sure he just came straight back in. He lost the weight and came straight back in.
No.
Yeah.
No. In the first Deontay Wilder fight, he had a couple of fights. He fought Sefa.
That was the second fight. And Pianetta and Seferi in the second fight. In between.
I thought the Wilder fights were back to back, weren't they?
No,
yeah,
they were back to there was a couple fights in between, wasn't there? No?
It was one fight. It was Oda Wilder.
Pianetta and Seferi were before the first.
Oh, sorry. It was also Wilder.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, right. So now you take a fact that Tyson Fury used both of those fights to work himself back into at least 75% of the fighter that he used to be. A 75% Tyson Fury was still better than Deontay Wilder looking to just knock him out with one punch. Because at the end of the day, Tyson Fury is one of those special fighters that you're not going to just knock him out with one punch, as we saw in the first fight. Now, once he had to fight with Oda Wilder, he got all the way back and came back. So I get what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, well, Tyson Fury didn't live that lifestyle for 3 years. But the thing was, he had 2 training camps where he used both of those training camps to regain himself, going up against Deontay Wilder, who I feel to this day, and I don't care, they can get mad at me if they want, I don't believe Deontay Wilder lives the fighter's lifestyle either, because this is a guy who openly admitted that he doesn't run. He openly admitted, I don't jog. Right? We saw what Mark Breland said about him not listening. It goes to what Dave was saying. Breland became frustrated with his own fighter. So you had a Tyson Fury who got back to 75% against Deontay Wilder, who was regressing heavily since beating Romain Stavern in 2015. So it was just one of those perfect combinations of things that had happened.
Can I just add as well?
Wow.
When you say things like this, and then somebody throws in, well, what about Tyson Fury? Oh, that's a one-off. That's a one-off. You can have majority of basketball players are massive giants, but there's 1 or 2 that are still professional basketballers that are average height, that aren't massive and huge. There's a one-off. There's always going to be a one-off. So Tyson Fury, even if he didn't have the 2 fights, even if he didn't have the 2 fights, and he came back, and after being off for 3 years and letting himself go and everything he came back from, and then he came back and then he beat Deontay Wilder. That is a one-off. You can't base a model of how to be successful or to do something based on that one-off, that once in a lifetime. You can't, and also you have to look at Fury's physical attributes that he has got, his boxing skills, his style is always going to be an awkward fighter. Fury could be out of shape, got no physicality whatsoever, get in that ring and could clown about and make it awkward for a lot of good fighters just because of his style. He knows how to use that range, that height and everything. So Tyson Fury is a one-off. You can't, I'm talking about going through history, the majority of elite level fighters that are there consistently for a decade or what. And again, Tyson Fury's not done it for a decade. I'm talking about these guys are active for a decade. Roy Jones, Oscar De La Hoya, Bernard Hopkins, Pernell Whitaker, all them guys, Mayweather, all them guys that have been at the top for a decade, it's for quite a big reason, is because they've always been working to prove, always in that gym, always doing it, always active. So the one-off, once in a lifetime is always going to happen. Tyson Fury, for me, is an anomaly, is a one-off, you know, and that's you know, that for me, that argument doesn't really.
Yeah, Tyson Fury is like what I am right now. Tyson Fury is like me. I'm an anomaly being on a British podcast with a bunch of British guys talking boxing.
All right, okay. Guys, smash that like button. We've got Benji, both from Three Kings Boxing, and Dave Coldwell in the building once more. All right, okay, it's boxing time. This is to you, Benji. I have a feeling Saunders pulling out of the fight. Surely not with injury. Surely not. He's been wanting this massive fight for quite a while now. You know, this breakthrough fight. This won't happen. Surely not.
I mean, the question, the way it's the way I read it anyway is, well, maybe it's a bit cynical. I don't know, but is this person suggesting that Saunders is going to fake an injury and use that as an excuse to get out of the fight? That is the way I see it is, as we said earlier in this live chat, a fight with someone like Canelo, the money, the stage, the opportunity, these things come around once in a lifetime. And to be honest, I think Billy Joe Saunders will, if he was missing an arm, he'd still get in the ring that night, because this is what his career has been building to. If you can't get up for a fight with Canelo, you know, the biggest stage in the world, what the hell would anyone be doing in boxing? So I completely disagree with this. I'll take it further. I think if Billy Joe Saunders lost 2 arms and a leg, I think he'd still hop his way into the ring that night. Just there's too much involved. There's too much money. There's too much stage. There's too much opportunity. So I have to disagree with that.
And also, Billy believes he wins. 100%. He believes he wins.
All right, Dave, this is just to you. All right, it's from Riddler. Biggest thing is Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders. Fair judges out in the States may cost him. Now, look, okay, I'm not trying to be cynical, right? We know it's going to be very difficult away from home. It always is, right? With the franchise that is Canelo. Like, I'm calling the franchise now because this is the icon at the moment, right? The icon. And we have seen some really weird scoring lately. Like, it's crazy, right? I think there was one fight I was watching. The score was so bad I couldn't sleep all night. It was that bad, right? Dave, is it fair to say the judges might cost him, even if he boxes a masterclass?
It's kind of what I said earlier on when I was talking about the fight. Anything that's close will go to Canelo, and the Billy has to win he has to win the rounds so clear that there cannot be any argument at all for Canelo to win the fight or win the round. So yes, it's difficult, but yeah, it is going to be difficult to win a close decision. But ultimately, if he wins every round clear and it's you know no contest in the rounds, if he doesn't get hit and you can see Canelo's head going like that, and he's not getting it, then surely he wins the fight. But is he good enough to do that? No, I don't think he can win every round without an argument. I just think that even the rounds, that there's going to be some close rounds in there. The early rounds, I think Billy could win a few of the early rounds, but they could also be close rounds, and if they're close rounds, they ain't going to be getting them.
All right, last question to Bo. All right, I saw this in one of the boxing Facebook groups earlier today. People are saying, look, okay, Canelo is great right now. All right, he's looking fantastic. He is the #1 pound for pound fighter, right? But they're saying, look, he should have lost more, right? He should have lost more. He lost the first Triple G fight, people are saying, all right, in the forums, and they're also saying that against Lara, he should have again lost that fight. So are we saying that based upon events that didn't transpire in terms of defeats, that Canelo really isn't indestructible, that he can be beaten? It's not all the truth on paper. Is that right?
No, no, that's not right. That's incredibly wrong. And here's the reason why, and I think somebody mentioned earlier. Before the Lauder, before the Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez got one judge to score the fight a draw, who was nowhere near the experienced fighter that he is now, against the face of freaking boxing and Floyd Mayweather. You had a judge give him a draw. So so you can't say what that person is saying, because there's an old saying we have over here in the States. If was a fifth, meaning a drink of gin or vodka, everybody would be drunk. I can sit here and tell you, if Anthony Joshua would have ducked Andy Ruiz's hook, he would never have lost the fight. That doesn't mean anything at all, period. Because what actually happened in the fight is what you have to go off of. And if you want to say, well, he should have lost to Lana, well, that tells me that you had a Canelo Alvarez that learned from the Floyd fight, that when he got in there against a slick boxer like Lana, he knew what adjustments to make. If you want to say, oh man, he should have lost against Gennady Golovkin, again, he learned from not just Floyd, he also learned from Miguel Cotto on what to do in Gennady, and what to do in that fight with Gennady Golovkin, which was, hey, I have to move around and box this guy. I can't stand right here with him and go with him. So, and then on top of that, the power of Canelo was so good that even if you want to say there were some close rounds hard to decide, the power of Canelo got that fight a draw. So you can't look at stuff like that. Like, I hate to say this because I'm not a person that thinks bad of everybody, but when I hear people say that, I ask myself, are they someone that's a fan of the sport of boxing, or are they someone that just don't like a particular fighter? Because if you're a fan of boxing, you understand how it works, and you can't look at something like that and say, hey man, if I look at this, then this like if I look at if I look at the red light, I can tell you that, hey man, if it wasn't for that red light, I'd have been in the parking lot already. No, man, it doesn't work like that, man.
I'll just say as well, this is something that gets to me about boxing, is that, so let's just say if Canelo did lose, he didn't get that decision against Golovkin. Let's just say Golovkin beat him. Look at the rest of his career, and Lara as well. Look at the rest of his career, and look at the wins. Look at the resume. Look at who he's fought, the level he's fought, the duration of how he's doing boxing. And are you telling me that doesn't put him down as one of the great boxers? Because just because he's got a couple of losses on his record. So does that mean that Roberto Duran, who was starched by Tommy Hearns, is not a great fighter? Does that mean that Roberto Duran, who was beaten by and no mass against Sugar Ray Leonard, isn't a great fighter? Sugar Ray Leonard getting beat by Terry Norris, getting beat by, should have been beaten by Tommy Hearns in a second fight. Does that mean that he's not a great fighter because he should have got more losses and he has got losses on his record? You can't judge whether somebody's great because they got beat. Because if you go through history, apart from Marciano, apart from Mayweather, you know, Joe Calzaghe. Apart from a very, very few fighters, everybody's been beat. But who have they fought? If you're going to take fights at the top level and you're going to challenge yourself, you have that fantastic four mix, and each one of them fighting each other. There's gonna be some losses. But we have to stop saying when a fighter gets beat, they're no good. He ain't no good. He's got beat. That's it. We have to stop doing that because we're spoiling. Our sport is fantastic, and when you see the best fight the best, you come away. If you've got the right mind, and if you are a true boxing fan, when you watch the best versus the best, you come away from that fight and you go, "Fuck, what a fight! Oh, look, what a fight!" You're not there saying, "Oh, Inoue against Donaire. What a fight! What a fight!" Did you come away from that saying Donaire shit because he got beat? Did you say Donaire's not a great fighter because he got beat? You know, enjoy the fight. Enjoy the fact that two guys at the top of the sport are going in against each other, and one of them might get beat. It doesn't mean that going forward he's not going to be remembered as a great fighter, you know. And that's where I think that sometimes we need to get away from, where we think that because he got beat, so he's not this, he's not that. Test yourself. You might get beat.
Hey, let me say something real quick to that point, and I'm so glad you went there. This is the reason why today we have so many undefeated fighters, because fans are saying that if you take a loss, you're not good. They're not taking the risk and the chances of fighters of old.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. This is it. We're just shooting ourselves in the foot, and this is why we don't get the best fight the best, because everyone's protecting their O or their record. Let's focus more about who's the win column rather than focusing so much on the loss column, because the win column, surely that's what's going to tell us who is great rather than the loss column.
100%. And don't forget the loss. If you take it in the right way with the right attitude of the fighter, the loss makes the fighter better. It does. It's simple as that. It makes them better. You know, I've seen it firsthand with my own fighters, how they've improved when they've come off a loss. You see it with Canelo after he got beat by Mayweather. You see it with Mayweather. Watch Mayweather in the first fight against Maidana to the second fight. I know he beat Maidana in the first fight, but you see how rough and horrible it was, how uncomfortable he looked in their moments. But then you look at how he going forward in his career when people do the same thing. Adversity and toughness in fights where it's not going all in your way. If they've got the right mindset, it makes them a better fighter. So we need to get away from this where we write fighters off because they've got a loss. This is boxing. It's not football. Because football, you can be the best team that's ever been, but you still might have lost four games in that season. Boxing, if a fighter loses 4 fights, shit, he's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, Pro Beez, have you ever known of a football team that went a whole season without getting beat?
Yeah, my team.
I just wanted him to answer that question. Him up for it.
Hey, the Miami Dolphins. I'm American, so football to me is different for y'all. The Miami Dolphins is the only team that go undefeated.
All right. And
I expect my check in the post for that later, mate.
Just to kind of conclude with you, Dave. Okay, look, pandemic, right? We've had a lot of, some people are calling it the shockdemic, right? Because some fighters that weren't really that special are being kind of exposed now, and they're being forced to take proper fights. So we're kind of now filtering out the good from the bad. Is that something you'd agree with?
Yeah. We're seeing it how fighters. It's not that they're not as good as what we thought or whatever, but they're having to take bigger steps quicker. You know, normally, normally you would have a kid that just turns pro. He's fighting safe fights to start off with for a good handful, and they'll build him up how they want to build him up on undercards and everything. Now we haven't got many slots for shows. We haven't got many slots on the shows themselves. So fighters are having to have real fights, and competitive fights. But competitive fights are what make fighters. I always say real fights make real fighters at whatever level, area level, British domestic level, European level, world level. If it's competitive, and when I say competitive, I mean the other guy's trying to throw punches, the other guy's trying to win, not just trying to survive. If a guy's there's a big difference between being in the ring with guys that are coming to give it a go. So if I'm coming to give it a go, round one, I come and I try to win. Round one, I figure out, I think, shit, this kid's too good. Come out round two, just to make sure you don't get hurt and make sure you can get through it. That's not a fight. That's not a fighter that's standing across you during the MC's instructions and looking at you and fully expecting to beat you. Whatever level it is, he's expecting to beat you. So he brings a different element to the fight to the guy that's coming to give it a go. Because the guy that's coming to give it a go doesn't believe he's going to beat you. He thinks he might be able to beat you. Difference. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing the matching where there's two guys in there that think they're going to win. And so sometimes we're having an upset, or one fighter that we kind of nailed on, we thought it was going to win, gets beat. Or, it's good for sport, it's good for the fighters. And this is a big if, when a promoter and the fans, they want these young kids to step up quicker, and they take up the step up quicker, if they get beat, don't then just fuck them off and disregard them because they got a loss. Because normally you would still have them fighting, learning fights for another 5 or 6 fights. But now you throw him in. Don't then, if it comes unstuck, or if you have a tough fight, don't then just say, he's not very good. Keep him waiting now for another year until he fights again because he's at the back of the queue because he didn't impress you and didn't do what you thought he'd expect, or he got beat. Because if you want them to continue to take in risks, managers to continue to be willing to push the fighters a little bit quicker, then if the wheels come off and it's a case of, all right, he got beat because lack of experience. He got beat because he wasn't ready yet. That doesn't mean that he's not good enough to become a champion down the line. If he learns from that, comes back. But the problem is what happens with a lot of promoters and a lot of fans is that we want them to take the step up. They take the step up, they get beat, they weren't quite ready for it, but then they just cast to one side and they're looking for an next date, looking what's happening in my career. Fans are tweeting and saying the shit. Fans are doing the reading and totally disregarding them. That is very difficult for a fighter because a fighter's got to adjust to that feeling of not being invincible. Because every kid that's unbeaten, believes they're unbeatable at that time, and they think they think they're bulletproof. And then when they have that first loss, especially if it's in the spotlight, it can be such a soul destroyer, and it can take them a long time to get over, especially in this day of social media where you're never allowed to forget it. And what you have to remember is as well, that fighter can go on to become a world champion, and you'll still get people tweeting a picture of them where they've been knocked out. It's like, move on. Do you know what I mean? But fighters have to cope with things like that. But like I said, it's a responsibility for the promoters as well to not, if they do take that step that's a little bit sooner than what it should be, and it does come unstuck, don't just disregard them for it. Understand its experience. They will learn and will get better from that.
All right. It's been brilliant, guys. So we've got to close it there. I'd like to thank Benji Boxing once more, my bro from Birmingham. I'd like to thank Bo from Free Kings Boxing, freekingsboxing.com. You see the hat? You see the fitted? Free KB, baby. And trainer Dave Coldwell for coming in at late notice, like a late call up to the England squad. He answered the call. Super sub. Guys, it's been great. Smash that like button. Pep Talk guys. UK. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Take care. See you later, guys.
Take care. Cheers.